Rule number 7, look for opportunities to be generous. Make generosity a habit. Instead of focusing on what you need today, think about how you can share what you have with others. And particularly look out for the isolated and most vulnerable at this time. Being generous, I think often it's very easy for us to jump to the conclusion that that's to do with our finances or it's to do with our time. And whilst it is, and when you speak to people and ask them what their stories are about how God's met them and the outworkings of their being generous through financially giving or giving of their time, actually it's really interesting, I think, when you start to think about other ways of being generous. And I don't want to skirt over being generous with your finances or with your time, because they are absolutely key things that God has called us to do and to be. But I think that actually it might be quite interesting to pick up on a couple of other things that we might not always think of straight away when we think of being generous. For example, forgiveness. I think we can be generous with how quick we are to forgive other people and to accept other people's forgiveness and accept God's forgiveness of us and the things that we've done. I think that is an area of generosity and something that actually we can practice, being forgiving and choosing to forgive people quickly. And I think that really is what God sees as generosity as much as anything else. Another area that I was challenged on when I was thinking about generosity was being unselfish. Now for me, our youngest, whenever she says, "Mummy, will you come and play with me?" I know this is also about time as well, but I'm very much, I don't want to. Do I really want to get down on my hands and knees and play with dolls and anything else? And I'll be with you in a minute, or go and do something. But actually, if I'm generous by being unselfish, putting her before me, going and spending that time with her, the impact on her is huge and she thrives in that time. And so, yes, be generous with your time, but actually there's an element of being unselfish there too. I'd much rather be doing something that I want to be doing rather than perhaps playing and doing things that I don't want to do. But actually the knock-on effect is huge, and I do think that it's really important that we consider being unselfish. And I mean, that's just one example that's really relevant for me at the moment, and I'm really having to take steps and practice being unselfish in that way and saying, yes, I will come and play with you. For each of us, it'll all be different. I think being judgmental is another area that I felt challenged on when I was thinking about generosity, whether it is that somebody has a different religious belief or just a different idea about how things should be done. I think that being non-judgmental is a way of being generous. It's being generous in spirit and being generous in kindness, accepting people just as God accepts all of us as we are. It's accepting others in the same way and not judging them, and being kind and welcoming and big-hearted towards them. So these are just some extra things that I think aren't always obvious when we think about generosity. They're things that, as I've sort of thought about what this means, this particular rule, are things that I feel are areas that I can work through myself. For each of us, like I said, it'll all be different, but I just want to encourage you to have a think and just put before God, what is it that He's wanting you to be more generous in, and how can you be more like Him in your generosity this week?